What's up in War Eagle War Report family? Your guy Ike Jones. We are here, another edition of the Weekend Tailgate, talking about top transfer portal additions to the Auburn football team during this second portal period. The fellas are here to talk about it this morning. Let's get straight this afternoon. Let's get straight into it. Y'all know how we do, Weekend Tailgate style.
You are now listening to a War Report Weekend Tailgate, brought to you by
Athletic Architect.
It's your boy, Ike Jones. Be Will, C-Dog, Mike G. Get ready, sit on back as we bring you the War Report Weekend Tailgate.
Yes, indeed. The Weekend Tailgate, another edition. Your guy Ike Jones sitting in as host today. C-Dub has a day off, joined by B. Will, Mike G. It's another Sunday. Happy Mother's Day to all the mothers that are out there. Happy Mother's Day to my mother. Happy Mother's Day to my wife. Happy Mother's Day to my sister, my aunts, all of y'all, cousins, friends, everybody who is a mother out there. We appreciate y'all. Happy Mother's Day to y'all. If you love your mother, share our video. Share the video if you love your mother.
I can get with that.
Yeah.
All you mother lovers out there.
Make sure
If you love your mother, make some noise.
Also, if you are a mother and you don't like our video, then we'll do a better job next Mother's Day of giving you content that you can enjoy. But if everybody out there who loves your mother like the video, subscribe to the channel so that we can get the word out there to more people, increase the bandwidth of what we got going out here in these algorithms. A lot of great stuff going on in the War Rapport community and with content that we are dropping out here for the War Rapport. And you got to be a member to be a part of some of this stuff, right? So come on board with a membership, and maybe you want to give some memberships on Mother's Day. Hey, listen, it's a good Mother's Day. Now, I can't guarantee you that a mother is going to get it, but your mother would be proud of you for gifting memberships to the War Rapport, because you know, we love our mothers, and
I see we're committed to this morning.
Yeah, and listen, it's Mother's Day, so we got to be on top of things in that way. So yeah, you might want to go ahead and get on board with that. A lot of film review happening. Peyton Thorne, we talked about him this past Thursday. Got so much more Peyton Thorne film. So if you want to talk a little bit about portal, we're going to do film reviews on all the guys that we're talking about today at portal transfers. So you guys need to be on board with that. You can gift a membership, though, if you're already a member and want someone else to get on board with that. We're giving away stuff as always. Hashtag get your weight up right now in the live chat if you want to be a part of the drawing. Now, you have to be present to win. So those of you on Facebook who are watching, this is going to be given away on YouTube after you guys drop off. So if you want to be a part of the drawing, come on over to YouTube and we can get you locked in that way. But let's get straight to it, fellas. Everybody doing all right today? Mother's Day, feeling good?
Pretty good.
Feeling good. Can't
Pretty
complain.
Yeah, man. It's a good day to talk about transfer portal, right? You know,
Every day is going to be a good day to talk
I was going to do this whole mothers are the portal to the world thing right then, but
no, I'm glad you did.
Yeah,
I'm glad you did.
Yeah, no, should have gone all the way in.
Yeah, listen, man. If you're gonna have a theme, you might as well do it all the way up, right? But transfer portal has been a hot topic around college sports, not just in football, but for Auburn, there have been some big needs that we have needed to get in the transfer portal. So today we are going to talk about three guys that we feel like are imperative to success for Auburn in the fall, or at least filling significant holes. Only during this second portal period, had a lot of guys come in. Not a lot of guys, but we have had quite a few players come in during this portal period. But we're going to talk about three of them, not necessarily in order of importance, right? So we're just going to list the three that we have here and then discuss why we feel like those guys are important. The three that we came up with, really Mike G came up with, because, you know, he is our portal guru today. Jalen McLeod, the edge from App State, Jaden Muskrat, the offensive lineman from Tulsa, and Peyton Thorne, quarterback coming over from Michigan State, is who we have listed as our 3 biggest upgrades, biggest positions in need, best players, whatever you want to say, coming in this second portal period. I will start the conversation off with you, Mike G, because these were the names that you put forth for us to discuss today. Why did you decide these would be the 3 guys, and why did we not interrupt you and say you're crazy?
Auburn has, to me, 2 very big areas of need coming into the fall. Number 1, the passing game and pass protection, and number 2, that jack position, right, on defense. So Jalen McLeod is really good, guys. I think he has a chance to be a star here. But if I had to pick one that would be the most important of the 3, I was going back and forth between Muskrat and Thorne. I'm gonna lean on Thorne here. I just don't think Auburn has a lot of experience at quarterback, and his experience could play big for them coming this fall, depending on how the other guys come along. So I know we've said over and over it's still a quarterback battle, but I think Peyton Thorne bringing in 2,600 yards and almost 20 touchdowns would be huge for Hugh Freeze this coming season.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely. So that's kind of my line of thinking there with these 3 guys.
Yeah. B. Will, any thoughts on these top 3 guys as constructed?
I want to echo his excitement about the edge that we got.
Jalen McLeod.
Listen, so many times I want if anybody has the time and you feel so motivated, go look at the draft after round 2.
Actually, I put McLeod as McLeod. It's Leod. I don't know why I had McLeod on the graphic, but anyway, it wouldn't be a graphic that I put together if I didn't have some sort of typo on it.
That's how you know it's authentic. You know what I mean? But I want anybody who if you feel motivated, go look at the draft results after round 2, and you will start to see some mid-major talent really in round 3. There were linebackers who got off the board before Owen Papo, before some D1 group of not group of 5, but Power 5 big schools, because there's talent all over the place. Now, traditionally, they go to those schools, they stay there, and that's it. They stay there, and it's up to the NFL scouts to find them at Sacramento State, to find them at James Madison, to find them at North Dakota State or wherever they're at. But now they get an opportunity due to the transfer portal to come up to a bigger program, a more public, a more visible program. And when they do that, teams like us can benefit. We may have one of those gyms, one of those 4th, 3rd, maybe even 2nd round guys who was producing at that level. Now, everybody goes, oh, well, he was producing there. Can he produce here? Some of it is just the guy is the guy, and he can just do that job. He can play that position that well. I always think of him. He played for the Indianapolis Colts. He's actually a Hall of Famer. Was it Mathis, the defensive end that they had? Maybe this is not his name.
Yeah,
he retired.
Robert Mathis was one. Yes.
Yeah. Listen, he was a Hall of Famer. He came from he went to HBCU, as a matter of fact, I think. But he was slightly undersized, which is why he was slept on. Listen, man, sometimes you just got it. You are that dude. Is it sometimes about your competition? You're able to dominate because you're not going to be facing these NFL left tackles. Sure. Yes. Sometimes it can absolutely be that these guys are smaller and not as fast as you, so you can dominate. But once you go up a level, they're quicker on their first step. They've got enough power to just stunt your rush, and you can't be as productive. But sometimes they're just the guy. And I'm hoping the productivity suggests this is a chance where McLeod is just one of those guys. And so I'm hoping that he ends up landing the biggest for us, because we think a lot of the talent we've thought a lot of our talent in the wide receiver room and even the quarterback room, even though it wasn't proven before, outside of Peyton Thorne and his productivity coming in here. But edge is in a very, very similar position. We've got talent. We know that we've got highly talented guys. We've got some experienced guys, very experienced with the transfer, Elijah McAllister coming in. We've also got very heavily talented. Everybody say he's eye-popping with Kelvin. What's his name? Kendrick Fall, excuse me. So we've got a mix of experience and talent, but who is going to be? We will have one that's both proven productivity that can do it. This is a position where we see that. I'm very close to saying that might be the most important pickup, because I mean, the last time we had a guy that you could count on for some QB pressures or sacks, it was Sensei Mud. Like, he's going to get it right now. It was Sensei Mud. Like, I think Echo Leota could have been that dude if he had stayed healthy. So, unfortunately for him, he wasn't. But that is so critical in our major runs, whether it was D4 in 2013, Sensei Mud in 2017, of course, Nick Fairley from the inside in 2010. Every time you find some outstanding success from Auburn, it might not be because our defense was just shut them down, but it meant timely stops. And this could be, I think that could be one of the dudes that does that for us for the first time in, like I said, 5-6 years. So I think McLeod's the most important pickup.
Yeah, I mean,
that was hard to argue with that.
Yeah, I think that he's proven that he can do it against Power 5 offensive lines. You know, everybody remembers what he did against Texas A&M. He's played against the likes of Miami, right? Like, so he's been out there and he's done it against Power 5 opponents, even SEC West opponents. So he has the size, he's got the speed. And he has Mike G's favorite attribute of all defensive players, which is a high motor.
High motor, let's go.
Mike G, if you guys did not know, loves guys with high motors. He doesn't like low motor guys. And so you have to make sure that you mention that whenever discussing a defensive player, and Mike G is in the conversation, that the motor of that young man is high. Jalen McLeod.
Yeah.
But yeah, no. So yeah, I would agree that we didn't put them in a ranking, and I don't want to put you guys on the spot and say who you would think is number 2 on the list, because I think we're pretty unanimous that number 1 is McLeod. But
I still say Thorne. I still say Thorne is number 1. But like,
you think Thorne is the most important on the list?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. I still think Thorne is number 1, but because they had it. I mean, think about it. They only had 2 viable scholarship quarterbacks going into this season,
right?
And that's a dangerous place to be. So I still think Thorne is number 1. Now, I won't argue with Jalen at all. Like, I think the reasoning makes sense. So it would be close. Right. I think. But, Thorne, man, I don't know, man. I just think with the lack of experience you have at quarterback, having a guy bring in, and raise the floor of the quarterback room in year 1 for Hugh Freeze is going to be huge for him. That's why they went out and got him. Yeah. So, it was stated that they had their eyes on him. He I believe he graduated, but still has 2 years left to play.
Yes.
And, I think if anything, even if he doesn't win it, I think he helps improve the other 2. Yeah. Right. I think this tightens up the competition quite a bit. Yeah. So if one of them does win it, then we know that they beat out a guy with a lot of experience. I would feel really good about Robbie Ashford if he beat out Thorne going into the fall.
Yes.
If Hugh Freeze chose Robbie Ashford over Thorne going into the fall, I would feel really good about Robbie Ashford, because I don't think he would take that decision very lightly, if that makes sense. Yeah. So, so Thorne in a lot of facets, right? Like, because of the competition he brings, and because of just the area of need, and because they need to get the passing game going. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
it's a quarterback.
Quarterback is I don't know that anybody would argue that the quarterback is the most important position on the field. So adding experience in the quarterback room is vital to the success of your program. And I think that, the staff, Coach Hugh Freeze, Monty Kiffin, Philip Montgomery, both realize that they need the right person to be able to lead in that room. It's not just about their ability. We talk about ceiling, floor, all those sorts of things. A portion of your floor and your ceiling is not just your athleticism. It's not just your ability to make throws. It's your ability to lead. It's your ability to be a calming presence. It's your ability to get guys rallied behind you. It's going to be really interesting to see Peyton Thorne. By all accounts, I have talked to some people who are Michigan State fans that I know who follow the team pretty closely. I've talked to some people who just follow the Big Ten closely, who've seen him from the opposing side. And I think actually it's important to get both sides of that conversation, not just the people who were, because, if you're a fan of a team, your opinion can be drastically swayed about a player, right? Like, if he didn't do good one game, he's the worst player in the world. If he did really great one game, he's, oh my God, he's the savior of our football program, right?
Right.
So you're going to get, both sides of that equation from most fans. From people who are on the opposing sideline looking at that player, though, you'll probably get a pretty honest evaluation of who that person is, especially if they don't have to play him anymore. You'll get, I'm so glad that guy's not on the opposite sideline anymore. Oh my God, thank goodness he's not playing against us. Or, yeah, I really wish they would have kept him. He was a bum, right? You'll get that 100% from people. So I got a good mix of that. And saying all that to say, it was pretty consistent that Peyton Thorne was a guy who wasn't going to be amazing, like, oh my God, Heisman Trophy. But he was, if you give him time to operate, if you get the right system and players around him, he's dangerous.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that knowing what we have as far as, we at Auburn and our confidence right here in the War Report in the tools that are around Peyton Thorne, I think he's walking into a good situation to be able to flourish. I think we're going to have a solid run game, and we'll talk about at some later date where we think that run game is going to rank amongst the country or the SEC.
First, let's talk about it now. First one.
All right, we'll talk about it.
I'm joking. No. We're not talking about it. Well, one.
How we think that the offensive line has progressed and where we think that they rank. If I were to go Kenny B on y'all, those of you who don't know who Kenny B is, he is on our podcast that we do with the Amen Corner, the Florida guy. He would tell you that Florida, you have to listen to him talk about Florida. It's amazing. He is the best homer in the world for Florida. He said Florida's a top 5 offensive line in the country.
He did say that.
Yeah, that's not exaggeration. That's not me putting words in his mouth. That is a quote from our guy Kenny B. Florida will have a top 5 offensive line in the country this season.
What did he say they were going to win? Not 8, 9 games? Did he say 9?
I think he said 8, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
He said he gives them a chance at 9, but I think he said 8 was like a guaranteed situation. He's very, very high on Florida. That's my guy, though, man. Kenny is great.
Yeah.
Very high on Florida. Okay.
Yeah, but I'm not going to go full Kenny B about our offensive line. I will say that it'd be hard for us to not have improved because of how poorly we played for the vast majority of the last 2 seasons. But even if you take away what I thought was an abysmal start to the season and you just compare it to the last 4 games of last year, I think we're better than those last 4 games where the offensive line played well or serviceable in the last 4 games. Run game definitely was on track. I think we got better in the offensive line. And I am not as down on the wide receivers as most people seem to be.
Right.
So factor all of those things in, and what I feel like is going to be a better play caller, Peyton Thorne is walking into a really great situation. That's a long explanation as to why I feel like Peyton Thorne should be a good quarterback for Auburn starting out, because he should have everything around him that allows him to be good. Right. All the stuff that people were like, well, Peyton Thorne's only good when he's got blah, 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 this, and that. He should have all those things.
Right. Well, especially considering the situation he's leaving as well, too, from what I've heard. From what I've heard, Michigan State is a bit of a dumpster fire right now. And Hugh Freeze, I think, is pulling Auburn together in a lot of ways. So, he's jumping off of a sinking ship onto, a floating one, essentially, right? Auburn was his life raft, so to speak. And hopefully the system jives with him a little bit better than where they were headed at Michigan State, because State was, man. I mean, I know we asked JG when he came on after Thorne signed, is he going to have more talent around him at Auburn? And JG was kind of neutral, right? Kind of depends on who you ask. I think he might have more talent than people think. Yeah. It's unproven talent, but who knows, man? Like,
it's so weird though, right? Like, and I get it. I get that certain programs get the benefit of the doubt when it comes to these sort of things, but it's so weird that nobody feels as if Auburn could have talent that just hasn't been proven yet, but they're definitely going to be good.
Right. Okay. So here's the deal, right? Again, because of the history at the better programs, they get that benefit of the doubt
Right.
when their talent is unproven.
Correct.
Right.
It's always just
they've got
next man
another
up.
5-star coming in. They got another 4-star coming. It's like we have 4 and 5 stars on this team too, guys. Come on.
Yeah. So like, I just think but they haven't done it yet, and part of the reason they haven't done it is because there's been a lack of opportunity to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Just haven't thrown the ball that much, right? So once they get that going, you might. It's people may be like, where do these wide receivers come from? And it's just like, well, we weren't throwing on the ball really if you were paying attention.
Right.
So if they get more targets and more opportunities, you may see more production. That's usually how that goes. So we'll see.
Yeah, and so to the point or the conversation we were having with JG, I thought more about it after we talked about it. And this was, if you guys want to go back and hear that conversation, this was the day that Peyton Thorne committed to Auburn. Mike, myself, JG Tate, having a conversation about expectations around Peyton Thorne, and I believe either in the chat or Mike asked whether or not this was a more talented team than Michigan State. Right. And, at the time I was like, I don't know. I have to think about it. I've had time to think about it. I believe we've got a better stable of running backs than Michigan State had last year. I would say after watching Peyton Thorne's film and how terrible that offensive line, like I haven't looked at PFF stats on Michigan State's offensive line, and maybe one of you guys can look that up or have already looked it up. Looking at the film on them, they were not good.
Right.
I mean, I thought Auburn's offensive line was bad. Michigan State's was embarrassingly bad. Like there were situations where I was just like, they're running the same twist stunt over and over again and beating you guys multiple. Like, how are you messing up the same thing over and over and over again in the same game? It's not like it's a different. Oh, I forgot. Like, they just did this 2 plays ago. How did you not recognize this same action and not handle it? It was bad. It was bad.
And we know what type of effect that had on us here.
Right.
Like it was almost impossible to evaluate either Holden or TJ at times because of how bad the line was. So if we got to extrapolate that to Peyton Thorne where he was at. If you're playing behind a terrible line and still brought down 19 and 10, listen. Almost 2-to-1 touchdown to INT ratio under terrible conditions.
Right.
I'll take that under better conditions.
Yeah, and that's why so I do think that our offensive line can be better than what Michigan State's offensive line was like. And again, I'm not even talking about like blitzing. I'm talking about rushing 4 guys, but just playing twist stunts up front with your defensive tackles, and they're blowing the assignments repeatedly.
Yeah.
And I was just like, yo, what do y'all even work on in practice? Because this ain't it, bro. This is not how this is supposed to go down.
Right.
So that, and then the wide receiver situation is probably, I would actually give the edge to Michigan State right now in that regard. Keon Coleman is a man-child. Like he's one of them guys out there as far as just like jump ball. Like he is every bit of what Mike Evans was in his years at Texas A&M. Okay. Like throw the ball in his vicinity. It don't have to be a great pass, and he'll go up there and get it. Contested, he's every bit of that. Not like Mike Evans, not like breakaway speed, but he could get open. He found like he's Keon Coleman he's nice.
He ain't committed yet, has he?
He has not committed yet. I don't feel great about him coming to Auburn.
I don't either. We haven't heard much.
And then there was another kid from them, Reed, who's more of a speed guy, and he was pretty good. So I think I would take their wide receiver core today, but again, partially because ours is unproven. But Camden Brown could be a Keon Coleman type. I think Jay Fair could be a Reed type. Javarius Johnson could be a Reed type. And then they didn't really throw the ball to the tight end, so I would give the edge to us in our tight end room. So out of the positions around him, running back, offensive line, wide receiver, tight end, I'm giving 3 of the 4 to Auburn. So I think he's in a better situation right now than he would have been had he returned to Michigan State based upon what I know right now. Now, Mel Tucker, 2021, did a miraculous job in the transfer portal. I hadn't kept up with Michigan State to know what they were doing in the transfer portal this offseason. and whether or not they're going to be in a better position than they were last year. But right now, I'd give the edge to Auburn room for room than what Michigan State was trotting out there on the field. So he should be in a good situation to be able to reproduce the 2021 Peyton Thorne that had NFL scouts saying, oh, okay, this guy might be something.
Right. So then that brings me to question then, because you said their wide receiver core was with an equally bad offensive line, their wide receiver core being better resulted in some better play from Peyton Thorne. That's how you get to 19 touchdowns in 10 interceptions, because you have guys who can make up the difference on the outside and the slot. So with that being the case, do you think that if we don't have a Keon Coleman, and I'm not saying we don't, because we can find ours this year with better O-line play and a better passing game, but if there isn't a Keon Coleman, a dude that's just a dude in the wide receiver room, do you still think that this can result, without an explosive wide receiver, that this can be a better year than it was last year for Peyton Thorne, just with better offensive line and run game?
I think the difference in that for Auburn is going to be the play caller and the way that they scheme guys open. I don't think Michigan State did an immaculate job or even close to adequate job of scheming guys open last year. Again, limited sample size. I probably shouldn't extrapolate too much based upon me watching three or four games of theirs, but they were against some of their better opponents, right? So I don't really care what they did against, Podunkville University, right? Like that doesn't matter to me.
Northern Michigan,
INT, it's irrelevant to me what you did in those games, right? Like you're supposed to look good in those games. If you looked bad in those games, then we'd be having a completely different conversation, right? But against your better competition, how well did you perform? Because I think that's going to be a better analog to how he would perform in the SEC, right? Because week in and week out, you're going to be facing teams that look like your better competition in the Big Ten. I didn't feel as if they did a ton to scheme guys open. It was really more about go win your one-on-ones, go win your matchups, as opposed to
that was their hearts and their on offense last year.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It was about individual matchups and efforts that they were trying to put together. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? Like, I'm not saying that there's a problem with having an offense that's constructed in that way. I'm saying that if you don't have Keon Coleman, who is like, all right, I'm open, just throw me the ball and I'll make the catch in contested traffic. Again, I do think we have an opportunity to do that this year with a guy like Cam Brown. If you don't have that, if you don't have a guy who's just faster than everybody else, so he's going to blow the top off, you got to scheme guys open. Right. And I do think that we have a coaching staff that's going to be available to scheme some guys open with just how they construct plays. That'll give him a better opportunity. As long as he knows where to go with the ball and he makes an accurate delivery, he should be fine.
Right. I agree. It's going to be fun, man. It's going to be interesting to see how much of, well, he wasn't great last year. I think we know we underestimate how much not only what surrounding cast does for a quarterback, but also scheme. I don't think there's a better indicator of how valuable scheme is than our last 4 games last year versus our first 8. Like night and day. Was Robbie slinging all over the place? No, I mean, he wasn't. He had a hurt shoulder. But productivity, we couldn't even move the ball. I go back to our game against Missouri last year. Tank was healthy, Jarquez is healthy, and the same offensive linemen that we were getting hella yards on the ground behind for the month of November couldn't find a yard against Missouri. Now, Missouri's D-line was tough, don't get me wrong, but how poor we looked and predictable we looked on offense, man, scheme just set us so far behind. We couldn't play to even what the players we had, what their potential was, because of how poor the scheme was. We could unlock something big if Freeze and Montgomery are doing their thing this year. So I want to see it.
No, yeah, I absolutely think that this offense can blossom with better play calling or better. I get frustrated as a fan watching guys just not, like, I was begging, like literally begging in games when we got into the red zone, just put in a big body package, right? Yeah. You've got a pass catching tight end. You've got a couple of pass catching tight ends on this team, right? But you've got a guy like Frazier who physically is bigger than most other linebackers or safeties he would be going up against, or even a Tyler Fromm, bigger than most of those guys, faster than most of those guys. Or even if you wanted to go with the speedy guy like Schenker, right, who can catch the ball really well, no problem. Cool. We can still run the personnel, and this is why I was like, it's not personnel groupings that I have an issue with. Run
Right.
your personnel groupings. Just all right, cool. We're gonna have the tight end on the field, but we're gonna flex him out and be a slot guy on this play, right? Because you've got 4 receiver packages that exist right there. You could just run it with the tight end, right? So again, it's about scheme. Then put in your big body receivers, put in your Landon King and your Camden Brown in there. You got 3 guys who should be good possession receivers. You only need to get 20 yards, right? You're in the red zone. Go throw some jump balls to a couple of guys, spread it out, figure out where your best matchup is based upon that, and let somebody go out there and catch the ball. Like I think sometimes they overcomplicated it last year for there's no reason in the LSU game we should be running a wide receiver reverse into a pass in the red zone when you have Camden Brown on the team.
Right.
That is not necessary when you could just step back and let Robbie throw a jump ball to Camden Brown.
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah.
And so it just frustrated me not doing simple stuff like that and just saying, all right, cool. We're just going to let him do 2-step drop, release it. We know he could do it. We saw him do it a couple of games later in Arkansas to Camden Brown.
Right. Yeah.
It's like, so again, it's not like the plays didn't exist in the play. You just decided, oh, we're gonna get cute and we're gonna run this reverse. Like, what? Why?
Yeah, we had a lot of things I would like to forgive from last season.
I just want us to, common sense stuff is too easy and graspable for us to be able to go out there and do those things. So I don't know, man. But we are at the halfway point. We're going to say goodbye to our folks over there at Facebook. We appreciate you guys watching with us. If you want to hop over to the stream and finish out the conversation with us about the transfer portal stuff, we'll talk a little bit about Auburn baseball. Kudos to them. And then we'll get into a little bit of everybody's favorite What Did We See segment before we get out of here. But if you want to stay involved with the conversation and you're on Facebook, make sure you jump over to the YouTube stream. But for now, we're going to take a pause and hear from our sponsors of the War Report. We'll be right back at you. This edition of the War Report is brought to you by our generous sponsors, AuburnSports.com. For news and notes on all things Auburn sports, head over to AuburnSports.com. Harmon Mechanical, a heating and air company offering premier service to the Auburn area and surrounding areas. Give them a call at 334-219-0717 or head over to their website at harmonmechanical.com. Let them know the War Report sent you. Harmon Mechanical. We're there when you need air. And our giveaway sponsor, War Eagle Oil. For all of your motor oil and related products, head over to wareagleoil.com. Appreciate all the sponsors of the War Report, and thank you to all of you who continue to support what we've got going on the War Report monthly by becoming members of the War Report. A lot of great film content coming for you guys in the coming weeks. Going into fall, man, trust me, I don't think I'm going to run out of film just because I have so much of it available. I've got film on Jalen McLeod. I've got film on Jaden Muskrat and Dylan Wade because they were both on that line at Tulsa. I've got film on Peyton Thorne. I got basketball film for you guys. I got film on some of the earlier portal folks that we got. What's the Lawrence? Isn't it Lawrence Jackson, the kid from Purdue? I got film on so many people. So we got a lot of film to get through. Hopefully you guys come on board with that so you can watch film with your guys so we can continue to understand what we have in our players coming up into the fall. Membership gifting is a thing you can do from the live chat. Go ahead and click on that and give a membership away to somebody. YouTube will randomly get this membership to someone if they interact enough with our content. But hopefully you guys can allow yourselves the joy of seeing somebody else's name turn green in the chat because you decided you were going to gift a membership to somebody else. And we appreciate everybody who is continuing to do that. We're going to give away another mug today. So make sure that you get your hashtag get your weight up in to be able to do the giveaway. We're going to do that drawing here in about 30 minutes. So you have to be present to win. Lock in with you guys. If you like listening to us and our faces just aren't attractive enough for you, or, you know, you just need to be hands-free, podcast. That's how you do it. You don't want to look at our ugly faces. You can just listen to our wonderful voices. If you say my voice don't sound good, if you say B Will don't have a silky voice, Mike G, I don't know about his voice being silky. It's good enough. If you like listening to the pod, though, go to Auburn Express, powered by the. I'm only making a dig at Mike because he's not on here right now, so it's easier to do that. Powered by the War Rapport. You can listen to us wherever they have podcasts available. The Auburn Express. You can get audio only versions and audio only content right over at the Auburn Express. But let's get back into the conversation. We're going to jump into the chat and see what you guys are talking about. Starting off with our guy Cody, aka Oda Smith, who says, "Yeah, it's about uniforms. I really want to see the orange face mask on the all-white stormtrooper unis just once, then the white mask at home."
I can't muster much excitement for the face mask. Is it? Do I notice? Sure. It's just not significant enough, man. I think we put on the orange face mask for Ole Miss, right? Was that Ole Miss in
the first time? It was
2021?
the Halloween game against Ole Miss. Yep.
Right. Now that was cool because we won.
Mm-hmm.
Listen, man, I think one of the worst things that could happen is we do an alternate anything and get lamb basted with it on. That's never coming back. So listen, let's wear some alternate colors when we play some of our out of conference, our cupcake teams. Let's get celebrated and get hyped up because I don't want to play. Thank goodness they didn't do anything special for Penn State because whatever that uniform would have been for last year, it would have never seen the light of day again. Never. Let's keep these things holy and make sure that they see some success when we bring out some special uniforms.
I like the alternate uniform stuff. I think the reason why I like alternate uniforms, number one, the players get excited about it, right? Like they want to have new gear, different stuff that they can put on. But number two, it helps with sales. Uniform sales go up when you have a new product that's out there and available. So I like the idea of making money. I'm a capitalist in that way. So I want to make some more money, give people some more opportunities to do that. I mean, you do have new players and new jersey numbers that can go out there, but slight tweaks. It doesn't have to be, an orange jersey. It could just be adding some other flair to it, right? Like you could just do something small that doesn't make it feel untraditional, but still has that traditional feel, but like just something small that adds a little something interesting for the guys, which is why I think the face mask thing, though good, is not great because you're not selling helmets, right? Like unless you're selling like the joint like this back here behind me, right? And you want to put a white face mask on it or a white, orange face mask on that, it's not really going to help you in the merch category as much. Jerseys will though, right? So I like the idea of doing jerseys because it allows you to do that in the merch way. And again, the players get excited about it. And I'm all for whatever is going to keep our student athletes fired up about stuff, even if it's something small like that.
Okay.
Ant Robinson jumps in and says, "War Damn Eagle fam, I heard we were going after Jackson State's top receiver, big body with height."
Yeah.
That is correct. I have heard the same things. If I'm not mistaken, was supposed to be visiting this weekend, pushed it back in this coming week. I could be mistaking him with the guy from North Texas. But then there's the other young man who is the offensive lineman, the JUCO transfer.
He did visit.
Yeah, he already had his visit.
Yeah.
But those are the top three. If we're talking about, though we have our top three guys that have signed so far, we're not done in the portal as of yet. There is a possibility for us to continue to add some more people. I think that we probably have about room for 5 more people. I would assume today at least one more wide receiver, potentially the offensive line addition, and then the linebacker. If I were to say, yeah, we're going to take at least, we'll probably do those 3 and then be done. I'd possibly 2 receivers. I don't know. There's the guy Shorter from Jair Shorter. I can't remember what school he's from right now, but
he's from North Texas.
Okay. All right. So
Yep.
North Texas players. And I know the linebacker Texas guy too.
Yep.
So Jair Shorter. And then a lot of people are excited about the Jackson State kid. And then the other name that's continuing to circulate is Montana Lamonius Craig. Asking me my opinion, which nobody did, but we're going to give you my opinion because we're talking about it. I would lean towards, and I think I've said this before, now that the Jackson State guy is in there, if I were to say we're going to get 2 of those 3, I would say it'd be Jair Shorter and the receiver from Jack State if we were going to get 2 of them. Lamonius Craig, to me, I think is probably the better receiver just because he's played against a better caliber. I don't know speed-wise how any of those guys compare. But I do know that this coaching staff wants to get faster in the outside receiver or somebody who is a Keon Coleman type where it's like, all right, you might not blow past people, but you're open when you're downfield, right? If it's one-on-one and you're downfield, even in the double coverage, you're still open.
Right.
So you need guys who the thing that you need is guys who threaten safeties. You want to make sure that the safety is not involved in your run game as much as possible or a step slower in the run game. If the safety can come downhill against the run, it means that whatever you're counting up in the box is irrelevant because he's coming in run support as well. So you're always going to have to account for that safety.
Right.
So you have to make people account for the safety in some sort of way, or that you have to make the safety accountable in some sort of way, a step slower, where that's going to be some sort of RPO scheme where they're going to have to add an additional body count to the quarterback because he may take off with the ball, or it's I can't be downhill that quickly because if I do, you're just basically surrendering 20 yards, right?
Yeah.
But there's a lot of ways to do that, not just with speed, but I do think that speed is a major way that they want to be able to do it with this coaching staff. Any thoughts on the Jackson State receiver, though?
I mean, Jackson State guy, he was very productive. He wasn't, I don't think he's a burner, but he's a big body guy. I mean, you said it, Hugh Freeze has a type.
Mm-hmm.
He straight up got a type. Unfortunately, I don't think, I mean, if you look at what they're going after right now, I don't think Nick Martin is going to play a big part of what we do on offense this season.
Not right now. I mean, he could come on the spring. Like, there's time. But
in the fall,
in the fall, excuse me.
Yeah. I mean, he could, but it's really tough to say. They saw what they had: Jarquez Hunter, Damari Alston, and Brian Battie, and we haven't offered one running back since then. Okay, quarterback. We heard before spring camp started, he was like, "I don't know, we'll see," and he went and got a quarterback after spring. With the edge position, we not only did we have some issues during camp, but we also lost Dylan Brooks, who maybe wasn't going to play a part anyway. He goes and gets an edge, offers a couple, but he go ahead and signs one. He talked about getting our O-line numbers up, and he was actually generally positive about the O-line after spring camp. But it's like, yeah, we need to get to this number. We offered an O-lineman. It seems to be pretty straight up. If he's going to be dishing out offers, depth, O-line was about depth. I actually believe that. I think his satisfaction in the position at these other positions is what we're seeing. He's not, again, I've said this before, said it before the spring. These aren't his guys. The vast majority are not his guys, and he's going to fill it up with guys that are his type. So I wonder how many of the guys that we have been excited about over the last 2 years we're actually going to see. We get Shorter, who is apparently a huge deep threat. Like, that's his thing. That's his specialty. That's what he does. Shorter, the wide receiver from North Texas, deep threat. We got Burton, but he's kind of an underneath guy, fast guy. But he's not a big guy, so maybe he was just reinforcing the slot position because he only liked 1 or 2 guys there. I'm not sure exactly how he uses the slot guy necessarily, especially for smaller players. So we'll see about that. But I don't know, man. When Hugh Freeze goes to get some guys, I think he's not 100% happy with the guys in that room. That's what it seems to be. And I think this is indicative of that. And that's why I say I think Martin is on the outside looking in. If you had a 6'6" guy that was a stud.
Yeah. Okay. That's completely fair to say, hey, we're going to go try to get somebody because we still don't. I mean, listen, he said it himself that he's never going to stop trying to look for ways to improve the room. So anybody who he adds, and this is the way I think a lot of people should think about this. When you're talking about building depth, right? You have to think about who is the lowest person in the room for that particular skill set, right? So if you need for a wide receiver, if he's saying, all right, cool, here are my outside receivers, right? And we haven't looked in depth at scheme, but I still do have 8A film where we could show a little bit of it. And I've got some past film where we could talk about just scheme itself when it comes to what Freeze Montgomery have run in the past. Who are my outside receivers? My guys who are going to play, closest to the sidelines in any setup, furthest away from the ball, right? My outside receiver guys. if I'm looking at this team right now, I'm saying Cam Brown is an outside receiver.
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying Omari Kelly is an outside receiver.
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying Nick Mardner, outside receiver.
Mm-hmm.
Coy Moore, probably fluctuating between. He's kind of a tweener guy, but I would put him in the outside receiver category. Malcolm Johnson Jr., outside receiver.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I think I just named 5 guys. There's 2 outside receiver positions, though, because you're usually going to have 2 receivers on the field. So, and typically when you line up, it's going to be your 2 outside receivers if you only got 2 on the field. Right. So if you're going too deep at that, you need to at least have 4 guys that you can consistently throw in at either of your outside receiver spots.
Mm-hmm.
So the question you have to ask is, with Malcolm Johnson Jr. hurt, Camden Brown, Coy Moore, Amari Kelly, and now, actually, no, he's probably going to be in the slide. I was going to say the guy from Ohio State. He's probably going to be an inside receiver.
165. He's not going to be outside receiver.
Yeah. So when you look at that, do you have a 2 deep right now that you're confident in? And that's what Coach Freeze has to ask himself. Marcus Davis has to look at his room and evaluate. Do I have a 2 deep at my outside receiver position? When I evaluate that 2 deep, who's the 4th guy in that room? And if I can bring somebody in as a transfer who's better than my 4th guy, then it's a no-brainer. I should bring him in. You're hopefully bringing in somebody who can compete for 1 and 2 during the second portal period. Not as likely, right? But you're hoping you can at least bring somebody in who's better than the 4th guy in that room, so that when you roll your 2 deep out, you know you've got 4 guys that you absolutely can trust to be where they're supposed to be, catch the ball when it gets thrown their way, block when they're supposed to be downfield. That's how you have to look at it in the transfer portal.
Straight up.
If you're not looking at it that way, then you're not thinking about roster the right way, managing your roster the right way. And so the question you have to ask yourself is Jair Shorter, or this kid from, and I don't know why, his name, all this time still has popped in my head, kid from Jackson State. Is he better at the outside receiver than one of my top 4 guys on the outside? I don't know the answer to that. That's not my evaluation problem to do, but that's the question they have to ask themselves. Now, let's go to the inside receivers. If you're going 4 wide, right, you got to have 2 inside receivers. You're typically only going to have 1. So you're 2 deep on that is pretty solid when you think about Javarius Johnson and Jay Fair.
Right.
But if I want to go to a 4 receiver set, now I need 2 more of those guys. We don't have 2 more.
Right.
So you can either throw Coy Moore into that mix and make him an inside, which is why I said he's a tweener, or you're going to bring in Caleb Burton, the kid from Ohio State that just transferred in. He's going to be your other one, but that still only puts you at 3.
Right.
Right. So, and you're not going to run 4 wide a lot, but you still need to have enough guys to be able to do that consistently. Because if somebody gets hurt, if we're running tempo, people are tired, all that kind of thing, you need to have that stuff, which is what I think they're going to supplement and have the tight end be kind of like that for
one of those wide receivers,
more consistently. Anyway, that was way too much information for y'all. This ain't even watched the film, and we're talking really deep into scheme and how we're putting lineups together. That was all to say, yeah, we could possibly get the guy from Jackson State. Anyway,
give the people what they want. I give the people what they want. They want the film, man.
Yeah, we'll talk about it on film. Another super chat here from Otis Smith, who says, I'm getting 2004 vibes just saying War Damn Eagle.
I am not. Because that was a very senior laden team, offensive line, quarterback, running backs. We had a all-American corner. I don't know if we have. I do think DJ James is that talented, but I don't know if he's Carlos Rogers type year talented. We had studs everywhere on that team. I think we're just getting back to the point where what we have is a SEC team with comparable talent to our to our rivals, to our competition. We are not at the point where we have superior talent to our competition. We were just stacked on 2004. So not quite. We're not quite there, but I think what we have is a 2005 team. Brandon Cox stepping in, and what do you know? Everything is solid everywhere, even though we lost a lot of dudes and we go 10-2.
Yeah.
Like that's best case for us right now.
Yeah, and the 2003 team, being clear, they drastically underperformed to expectations.
Right.
Our 2022 team did not. They didn't drastically underperform. Now, should we have been better than what we were? Sure, probably 1 or 2 games better.
We should have been a 6-win team.
Yeah, I think we should have won 7 based upon how it all played out. There's 2 games we definitely just kind of left hanging out there, but still, the team in 2003 was a team that should have been competitive in every game that they were in,
Right.
won more games than they did. And they took that disappointment into, your point, a senior laden team who was ready to come back and get retribution.
Right.
That's not like this is a reconstruction. This is
Right.
closer to 2013 than it is 2004.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
And so a team that you don't expect to do much, and if it does a bunch, you're like, whoa, I don't know if I saw this happening based upon what I saw last year.
Right.
So Peyton Full gives you the info on Robert Mathis, who went to Alabama A&M.
Yep. That's okay. That sounds right. And I knew it was an HBCU.
James Burton says, fellas, in your opinion, how close is this roster? This is kind of good coming off the heels of what we were just talking about. How close is this roster competing for the SEC West, especially considering this staff and the potential developments?
You know what? I think we are, because the West is really only about 3 teams that can out recruit us, at least to date. One of those is, of course, Alabama. Texas A&M can because of the pockets, and LSU. LSU has traditionally recruited better than us. Can we be competitive with any of those teams? Yes, because scheme makes up for a lot of that. Texas A&M is usually poorly coached, and I'm a little disappointed that they won't be as poorly coached, because Bobby Petrino, he might be a terrible guy, but he is a damn good offensive football coach. So they're going to be more competitive this year. I fully expect that. They did bleed quite a lot of talent. So we have to see what Texas A&M. They're probably the biggest, if not just as big a question mark as we are. A lot of new talent, new coaches. There's a lot up in the air for them, but they still had a solid base of recruiting in the years over the last few years. Even if they lose that super uber talented class from last year, most of it, they still brought in a couple 5-stars this year. They had still brought in a couple 5-stars per year in the years leading up to last year. So I don't think we really know what they're going to be. I don't think LSU is going to win the West again. I just don't. I think they kind of got a little lucky, a little bit.
No, they definitely got lucky in our game.
Like, I'm not even saying that I think our game was not quite indicative of how good they are. I think that was probably their worst played game. They were gradually getting better. My point
is that they don't even get a chance to win the West if we beat them in that game.
No, they don't. They don't. Right. They don't. So they had to get that. They lost to Florida State. I don't think they lose to Florida State. If they played Florida State in November, I think they would have beat them.
Oh, well, I don't know. Florida State got better as the year went on too, right?
They did, but they lost a lot of talent in that first game. They lost like 2 or 3 starters in that first game against Florida State. So the guys who have been going through your camp from spring to fall, they're out. Now you got to get backup guys in. And remember, this was a completely new staff for them. So everything was brand new. So it's not like you had guys in your 2 deep who were familiar with running the system, or coaches who knew their personnel that well. They were figuring all that out early with a new system, with a bunch of injuries. And that's why I think LSU later. Now, the reason I don't think LSU repeats for the West is because I don't think they have a very high ceiling with Jaden Daniels at quarterback. He's okay. He's good. He actually had a pretty decent floor, and his ceiling was decent as well. But their offense was never – Bama was mediocre on defense outside of Will Anderson. And you scheme around Will Anderson, you could put up yards on them, as Tennessee did, as LSU did. So I think that's what we saw in those games. I still don't think LSU was necessarily that good on offense. It will be more about what did they do on defense to improve and stay healthy. They brought in a lot of transfer talent last year. How much of that stayed? How much of those guys that got hurt early decided to stick it out and stay with LSU? Did any of them declare? I didn't keep up with their personnel, so I don't know for sure. But how much of that talent there was not necessarily happy? Again, they lost Tolan to us. Why? I'm still questioning.
Tolan didn't play a ton for them last year, so I mean,
he didn't. But they, by all expectations, when he left, everybody was like, "Wait,
step in." Yeah, he's supposed to be our next dude.
Yeah. So why would somebody? I always question when somebody who stands to improve their playing time and their development at a team that has had success, immediate success, why do you leave that situation?
Yeah. And
that's something I'm going to be asking, and I'm eager to see if Brian Kelly can do it in year 2. I think we're competitive with all of those teams. A&M, of course, that's an away game, so as is LSU. we're going to be competitive with all of those teams. I don't think we get blown out by anybody in the West. Georgia's the one that I've got my antenna up for because they're still Georgia. And Kirby's got them playing in another gear the last 2 years, defense, and then as recently as last year, of course, with offense as well. So Bama doesn't scare me. They rarely ever do anymore, but Bama just doesn't scare me this year based on what we've seen from them. They've got new things, new wheels in the cog as well. So we'll see. But I think we're competitive with the West. Ole Miss can't out-talent us. Mississippi State can't out-talent us. And they just lost the best offensive guy that you could possibly have at a place that's not going to get top-tier talent because he's going to system his way with mediocre guys into more production. You lost that guy. I know that they got all the playbooks.
State?
Yeah, Mississippi State.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, they've got the playbooks. I always wonder this. When somebody who's great at something leaves, but you've got all the information he's had, like if you got a great offensive coordinator there, and he leaves, well, we got every play that you ran for the last 3-4 years, right? We should be good, right? You ain't that dude, though, man. Like that play calling, you talked about this. Play calling is an art. I could have everything that you design in my hands and not get even close to the final result of what it was when you were calling those plays because you are that dude calling plays. You have a rhythm. You have a sense of what that defensive coordinator is worried about what he's trying to protect with his design and play calls on defense. Either you have that guy or you don't. You can have his plays, but you don't have his mind. I think, of course, Mississippi State is just going to take a step back offensively because of that. We're going to out-talent Arkansas every year. We just will. And there's nothing they can do.
I'm hoping Arkansas fans hear you say that so they can remind us of the score from last year's game because I'm sure that they will.
Oh, yeah. Let's be clear. It took one of the worst season in a decade for y'all to beat us, and that's not a coincidence.
Yeah.
We are the better program by far. Every coaches and players running away from your program in droves as soon as the final game is played. That's not a coincidence, man. Y'all, this is what y'all are. It's okay. So yeah, we're going to be better than 3 teams as we always are in talent. Ole Miss, Mississippi State, and Arkansas. Competitive with LSU, A&M, and Alabama. Which of those do we get? That's really my thing. I expect us to win all 3 of the games where we are better than them in talent. Arkansas, Mississippi State, Ole Miss, because that should be our standard. That should be our floor. If we have more talent, we should be beating those teams. LSU, Bama, A&M, we will see. We will see.
All right. Well, I mean, so back to how close are we to competing? I do think that we're probably another year away from realistically competing. When I say competing, I mean we can be competitive in games just with our talent alone. I don't know where we will be as far as our understanding of the system and how much we've gelled together as a team, specifically on the offensive end. Where I am more concerned, honestly, right now is whether or not this defense is going to be good against the run. And if we can play competitively against the run, i.e. Missouri last year, you're going to be in every game. I say this all the time about, and it holds true for basketball and football. If you can be good at defense, you can be in every game because it stops the other team from scoring, right? Like if I can just stop you from scoring, then I put myself in a position where if I could just get it together, 1 or 2 drives on offense, this game is competitive.
Right.
That's what happened with us against Missouri last year. We weren't scoring the ball enough because Missouri's defense was actually decent enough. That's what happened when Missouri played Georgia.
Right.
The defense kept them in that game, and the offense made just enough plays to make it interesting, but they just didn't have enough offensively in the tank to be able to actually do anything.
I think that was Georgia's closest game last year, wasn't it? Well, it was outside before Ohio State, but yeah. And Missouri was like a 6-6 team.
Yeah,
7-5. I don't listen. How does that happen? You make that make sense. Your defense being stout can give you so many opportunities. Unfortunately, if your offense is bad enough,
that's what saved Gus Malzahn for years. Really good defenses. We weren't scoring a ton of points, but the defense was keeping us close. And then we'd get late score, win the game, or not able to produce that late score, lose the game. Right. So having a good defense makes you competitive immediately. My question is, where are we defensively? I don't know the answer to that. Talent-wise, I think that we're good. but do they have this new scheme down? Because both offensively and defensively, this scheme requires you to think a little bit about what I'm supposed to do, where I'm supposed to be. I think the reason why a Kevin Steele coached defense for Auburn, despite outside of just talent, right? You saw when the talent went down, it just didn't really matter, right? Scheme wise. The reason why the Kevin Steele scheme works well year over year is because it doesn't require you to do a ton of thinking. You can be more instinctive. And if you're talented, that talent allows your instincts to pay better dividends more quickly.
Right.
The schemes that we've had the last couple of years require you to think a little bit more. You're playing more zones, so you have to kind of understand what the route combinations are out in front of you, right? Like understanding, okay, I'm the high safety on this one right here, and we're passing off this route in this way and from the linebacker. Like that requires you to think a little bit more, but it's actually more pro level concepts. So those concepts prepare you to be a professional a little bit more because pros see you doing more things they're going to ask you to do down in and down out. Now we can have a debate as to whether or not, how effective that is and blah, blah, blah. I think it's great for preparing guys to go to the next level defensively because it makes you do more things that you're going to do on Sundays. Anyway, that's not here for me to defend anything about that. But this scheme is going to do some of that stuff as well. It's going to make you think a little bit more. It's going to have to make you do things that you're going to do on Sundays a little bit more. But it also means you're probably not going to be as quick to pick it up. You're probably not going to be able to play as fast early in the season. How quickly can we get acclimated to what we need to do, communicating properly on defense? That's going to determine to me how many games we win this season. The defense is going to.
And that's part of my point to you about LSU was they weren't early. They weren't as good as they were going to be late. And I think we are in a situation where it's going to be that whenever continuity now, as far as how I look at teams and how I bet them, especially continuity is a really big deal. All right. If I can expect, here's your offensive coordinator, your defensive coordinator, your talent is talent that's been in the cupboard there. They don't have to replace a bunch of stuff. They're guys who've been in the scheme. They got a lot of backup snaps the year before. Like what Georgia does with defense, that's a clear indication. No, they'll be fine. Your defensive coordinator is still there. Will Muschamp was still in pocket there.
And they run a lot of pro stuff in Georgia.
Yes.
They run stuff you're going to see on Sundays. And that's why you got talent plus pro schemes. It puts you in a different conversation than the rest of the people who you're playing against. Quarterbacks don't see that every week. Not somebody with that much speed running these kind of concepts. You see clear separation in Sunday quarterbacks when they play Georgia.
Right.
Because Sunday quarterbacks are going to be able to analyze what's going on, which is why I think people don't put enough respect on some like, I get it. He looks like a toddler out there right now at practice. I don't know if you saw the video.
Bryce Young
out there taking snaps.
Yeah.
He looks like a kid out there, but I don't think people put enough respect on how good he is at just analyzing the game, because he doesn't have the biggest arm in the world. He doesn't have the physical attributes, but he's able to do so much just because he's thinking far beyond what most collegiate quarterbacks are doing.
Right. I mean, Bill O'Brien does not run a one and go scheme. Like this is complicated. It's got layers to it. It was going to be complicated. They had the one quarterback they had to have to knock Crater off. His ability to identify and process, and Bryce Young, like I don't think if you put freshman Jalen Hurts back there, they would have been as productive as they were in 2021 and 2020. None of the quarterbacks before this point would have been ready as redshirt freshmen to come in and be as good as Bryce Young was. He was a unique talent with his ability to process and identify. And that put him heads and shoulders above the other QBs in the draft. I mean, we talked about the draft already.
Not physically head and shoulders, but just
not at all. Not even close.
Yeah. All right. We're going to get back into some of your comments, but we are going to get into our drawing here in just a minute. You know what I didn't do because I've been hosting? I didn't put the drawing thing up.
All right. So you want to pull that up, let everybody get your weights up back in, and we'll take a couple questions.
Yeah, we'll take a couple more questions. Let you guys get this will at least make sure that people who are actually here will be able to get in here. Let me make sure I get this in here right quick and start collecting. All right, put your hashtag, get your weight up in here. We will get a few more questions. And then we'll get into the drawing here.
I saw this. I wanted to get this from Brad because he was saying why. Well, everybody in the chat, some people were saying, hey, Bama doesn't look too scary this year. He says, why? It's still Bama. As much as I dislike that team, it is absurd to say they'll have an 8-4 season.
Absurd.
Brad, I've never seen 8-4. I haven't seen anybody predict 8-4. But
no, Oda in the chat said 8-4. That's what
okay. Oda said 8-4. Okay. Yeah. Well, I can't go there with you, Oda. I can't go there with you. But what I will say is that something that's been consistent here at Auburn is if we are good, we beat Bama. The entire time Saban's been here. If we are good, we don't even have to be great. We have to be good. All right. 2019, we were not great. We had a great defense. And to your point earlier about the defense saving Gus Malzahn's bacon, the defense really gave us way more than we deserved on offense in 2019.
2 pick sixes in that game.
2 pick sixes. 14 points in that game. Florida, the defense held on all game. We couldn't give them anything. LSU in 2019, the defense held on all game against the best college offense in history. And we couldn't get them one more touchdown to win that game. We were a good team, not a great team. I think I looked at the stats for that game with Boobie Whitlow, who was a mediocre at best running back. Bo Nix passed for like 50% that game. Did almost nothing. I think the last touchdown, the decisive touchdown, was a flip forward from Boobie and the Wildcat to Sean Shivers with the speed sweep. We won that game. The defense was honestly, they got toe up that game, to say the truth. 14 of our points were defensive. None of their points were defensive. It was all offense, man. We got torched.
Yeah.
But we won that game because by the end of the season, to your point, we've been doing this long enough. We know what our deficiencies are. We know what we're good at, what we're bad at. We are the best we're going to be at the end of the season if we're healthy. We've come together in that game at Jordan Hare for a lot of those seniors on defense as well. 9-3 team. When is a 3-loss team beaten? That's all it took. That is all it took. Since then, have we ever been more talented than Alabama since Nick Saban's been there? Ever. In 2013, we were not more talented. Now, you can have an argument for Cam Newton because he was just a supernatural force. We had 2 players that were NFL prospects on that team. They both went to the NFL. Position for position, top to bottom. If you're going to ask me the top 10 most talented players in an Iron Bowl, we had 2 and Bama had 8 in 2010. In 2013, we may have had, again, maybe 2 and 8. D Ford, Nick Marshall, maybe Trey Mason was one of the 10. Every year, when we're beating them, we never have the most talent. And we have never been more talented top to bottom than Alabama. We just have to be a good team. That's all we have to be. I'm looking down on them because something that we talked about as far as Alabama being better or worse at quarterback this year. Starting in 2014, they had Lane Kiffin as the OC, a quarterback-friendly OC, right? 2015 was Lane Kiffin. 2016, it was Lane Kiffin. He bolted in the playoffs because he went and got his other job. Then it was Steve Sarkisian. Lane Kiffin coaching tree, quarterback-friendly OC. Lane Kiffin in 17, 18, 19. They had Tua. They had Mac Jones in 2022 as well. 2020 as well. Mac Jones, that was Sark's last year. Players are committing to people who can get them to the next level and develop them. You have seen the commitment to Alabama from top-tier quarterbacks fall off here recently. Who was their OC? Nobody wanted to play for Bill O'Brien. Nobody. They had a successful run of 7 years of high-flying offensive coordinators that were known to do good work for their quarterbacks. They don't have that anymore. They went and got a 3 yards in the cloud of dust guy from Notre Dame because why? There are no more Sarks. He's got a head coaching job. There are no more Lane Kiffins. He's got a head coaching job. So who is we're going to put up points. Maybe if you want to go get the guy who he got fired by the Cardinals, but USC picked him up. What was his name?
Cliff
Kingsbury. That was the one. Now, if they were going to get one, that was the one to get. But they didn't. I don't know if they didn't want him or I know he wasn't taking no calls after he got fired. He wanted to go to Taiwan or whatever and live it up for a few months. Cool. I understand, Cliff. Do your thing. They had been a QB destination because they had the offensive coordinators that were attractive to high school quarterback prospects. They don't have that anymore. Bryce Young is a generational talent. Of every time they get a quarterback, like, I don't know, he might be the one. I thought that with Jalen. I thought that with Tua. Bryce Young was the one. That was it. That was the one. And he won no championships because since Kirby left, their defense has gotten progressively worse. So they finally got the offense up. The defense goes off the cliff. I don't know what anybody is seeing to suggest, well, maybe their defense will be better. I agree. Pete Golding was mediocre at best. I don't know that their next defensive coordinator is going to get it together. What is his name? Eli Ricks. He was supposed to be a 5-star, and he came and he played, and he didn't even get drafted. This era was the guy they picked up from Tennessee that was a linebacker, and he was there for 2 years.
Henry Toto.
He was supposed to be like this different. Oh, he's going to be in the Rolando McClain and Reggie Ragland and all this generational lineage of linebackers. When have you seen generational lineage linebacker play at Alabama? In the last 5 years, Dylan Mosley was supposed to be there, right? Was he? We're giving them credit off of the ghost of Christmas past. And I understand why it's so hard to look at that team and that coach's face and say, they can't fail. They can't not win the West 2 times in a row. That's not possible. Listen, man, it's possible. If Kirby was the thing that made you go on defense and he's not there, you've seen it happen at Georgia now. He left. That defensive dominance transferred over to Athens. It has not been at Alabama, save for about a year or two after Kirby left, because Jeremy Pruitt was a very good defensive coordinator. Kirby was the one, though. And I don't think how do you argue with that when you see the results at Georgia? You see the offense that they put up at Texas and at Ole Miss. Even though I'm not a fan of Lane Kiffin, he's going to put some points on the board for you. Who are quarterbacks coming to play for, and who is the defensive coordinator that's generating these national ranked top 5 all-time defenses? They have neither one. There's only a matter of time. They're going to get the talent now. Granted, they're always going to have the talent. It is just a matter of time. Nick Saban is not the best staff to be on anymore because eventually people got wise to it. They got a job under him and went to get a better job, and he couldn't keep anybody worthwhile in the tank long enough. We're winding our way down over there in Tuscaloosa is all I'm saying. And I'm not saying there's going to be 4 losses for them. I'm saying I don't believe they'll necessarily win the West either. They haven't been scary in a long time. How do we take them to 4 overtimes with our talent in 2021 and our dysfunction in 2021? How is that possible? That shouldn't even be it should not have been possible for a backup quarterback with his first day there being in like May or June, who was on one leg, who didn't even know the system well enough to his own admission, being in the game and being able to make that a competitive game. A defense that was as decent but not deep, keeping an offense that was that high flying contained for that long. It's been like this for a while. Okay, we come in as a very poor team in 2022, and we put up the most yards they've ever given up on the ground. And that was at their place. Even, yes, we lost by 25? I don't know what the final score was. Remember when Alabama used to dominate no matter what? Y'all, does anybody else remember that? What's happening here? I feel like the signs are all there, but nobody's willing to call it because Nick Saban's still there. And right. I understand that. The signs are right in front of y'all. If it's not this year, it's coming soon. It's already started. I understand. That's all I'm saying about Alabama in their current state. We can compete with that team. Then I'll leave it right there.
Okay. All right. Not saying 4 losses, but definitely saying they're not going to win the West. Not mad at that assessment. Mm-hmm. All right, we're going to try this again now that I do have my hashtags lined up for the draw. And we're going to give away this War Report mug to somebody today. Hashtag get your weight up. If you haven't had an opportunity to get it in the last 15 minutes, I don't know what you've been doing with your life, but let's go ahead and hit this button. Only 39 people, so somebody's got to win this joint today, courtesy of GWT2 Energy Consulting Services. Our winner for today is going to be James Sawyer.
James, what's up, man?
James Sawyer, you should be here because you just collected the hashtags a minute ago. So
yeah, where you at?
All right. While we're waiting on James, keep an eye out for that. B. Will. Let's go into the chat. Let's see. I don't see any. Oh, I do see another super chat here from Alan Berry who says, "Call me a Josh Pate stan, but I agree with him on Alabama just needing an average QB because the defense will be elite this year." James thinks Bama will be back to elite defense this year. B. Will, thoughts on that? You already gave a little bit of thoughts on that, but
whether or not their defense is elite, I would have to be knowledgeable about their recruiting and who their defensive coordinator is. And honestly, I do not pay attention to Bama until I see them play some games.
I mean, the coordinator we know is Steele, right? Kevin Steele is your defensive coordinator.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that. Okay, so they can be good with good talent. Yes, they absolutely can be. They can also be beaten with good talent as well. I don't know if they have good players or special players on defense, because every year they bring in top tier defensive talent, but they haven't really looked. Again, the dominance that we're seeing at Georgia right now, we hadn't seen that from Bama in was it 2016? Maybe 2016 is the last time we saw that. So you got to show me something, man. I want to see it from them. I don't know that their defense will be elite. I know that their defense will be talented. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, and that's what I was saying earlier about you don't have to have Cam Newton come in and be your quarterback when your defense. But we needed Cam Newton in 2010 to win an Iron Bowl because our defense was not elite.
Right.
It wasn't. Like, by no metric was that defense even really good. It was a bad defense for the vast majority of that year, which is why we had so many close games.
Right.
They were opportunistic at best, right?
Yes.
Like, they took advantage of opportunities, but you had two ethereal talents in Cam Newton and Nick Fairley that willed that team into a national championship. Right. So no, you don't need, any of those quarterbacks to be Bryce Young in order for Bama to be good. Those are definitely separate thoughts. But if you don't have Bryce Young, your defense better be good.
Better be. I'm not saying it can't be, but what evidence have you seen from them over the last 5 years that they can just generate an elite defense at will? Haven't seen it in a very long time.
Yeah. James Sawyer is here. We appreciate you as always coming in here. You know what you need to do, and that is sending us an email at business@thewar report. Make sure your spelling is correct on the name. Get your address over to us, and we will get your mug out in the mail to you. We'll take a couple more comments here. Another super chat coming in here from Otis Smith, who says 2 yards and a blown safety call away from 8-4 in 2022.
Yeah, they got away with that Texas game. They got away with that Texas game with that blown safety call, and that was just some very janky officiating there. They could have lost that game. Heck, Ewers going down probably decided that game, to tell you the truth. But it's been dicey for them here lately. So we'll see what they got. It's not impossible that they could lose 3. I'm not even predicting that they'll lose 3. I just don't think they win the West.
Yeah, I listen, I haven't done any sort of, and that's something that, if you guys don't know, we will get into later on as we get closer to the season, some predictions on what we think. For me, it's going to be after we do SEC Media Days. I will haven't had an opportunity to hear from the coaches, see some of the players, and then have, had a better opportunity to kind of evaluate some of that stuff, what I feel about projections, even for Auburn's record projection. I've given some loose projections out there, but we'll give a more definitive one as we get closer to the season, and make sure that we're on record so that you guys can come back and say you guys were crazy, or hey, man, you told us way before then.
Why not? Yeah.
Jump back. We'll get a couple more in here. Yo, Malcolm earlier said we lose in our traditional jerseys. In reference to the conversation about not having special uniforms, like we lose in those traditional too. So why not?
But we also win in those to balance it out. That's what I'm saying. So if we only put on these special jerseys one time and get drubbed in them, I don't want to see them jerseys no more.
Quan Lawson says, when we say over the top, are we talking 50-50 balls or over the top speedy wide receiver? When I say over the top, or when I say stretch, I say stretch the field typically, but when I'm talking about that, I mean speed. I think when I was talking about this earlier, you can have a guy who's a good 50-50 guy who's just always open to make sure that the defense has to respect them and put somebody over there with them. But speed is typically what threatens the safety more than size.
Yeah, for sure. It does. And when you can get a 2-in-1, the guy that's both elite.
Right. But here's the thing. Randy Mosses don't grow on trees.
Right. They don't.
Like, you're not going to have Megatrons just walking around 6'2" and above with speed and leaping ability. Like, Sammy Coates was the kind of guy who is kind of close to that big, imposing receiver, got a lot of speed, jump ball type of guy. Man, I wish we had gotten to see the totality of what I thought was about to be an amazing Auburn career from Kyle Davis.
Oh man,
Because Kyle Davis was a big, fast, physical receiver. And I was like, oh man, we got us one, bro. We got us one. And that we did not get to, in my opinion, get to enjoy the full fruit. Well, not my opinion, it's factual. We didn't get to enjoy the full fruits of the talent that was Kyle Davis.
Yeah, for sure.
So Brad Browning jumps back in and says wide receivers have to hang on to the ball. I don't have the stats over the last couple of years and could be dead wrong, but it seems like there have been a lot of drops. 2021 for sure.
For sure there were.
Last year, drops was not an issue for this team. Not to say that we didn't have drops, but every team has drops. So you're not going to always catch every single thing that's thrown in your direction. And it is more on, a couple of people that like to the point that we made earlier. There's no receiver that's on this team that had a lot of targets last year.
Right.
Coy Moore and Javarius Johnson are probably our top two returning targeted guys in there.
Right.
Neither of those guys had. Javarius Johnson darn near catches everything thrown in his direction. So like he does not drop the ball very often. Coy Moore had a couple of drops, but he's not a guy who I think has an issue with drops, right? Like, again, he doesn't catch everything.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't say he has an issue with drops though. Camden Brown caught everything thrown in his direction for the most part. I think he might have had one drop last year. Again, I'm not looking at the stats either. Jay Fair didn't have enough targets for this to even be a conversation, but he did catch anything that was thrown to him. Malcolm Johnson didn't have a ton of targets, but he doesn't have an issue with drops. And nobody else in that wide receiver room is a returning guy or Mark Kelly, Mark Kelly, he only had a couple of targets and he caught those. The rest of it's going to be tight ends, and most of the tight ends that are coming back didn't have a ton of targets. Underrated. I've said this before. Luke Deal's hands are actually underrated. He catches the ball really well. He's not as fast a guy, but mark my words right now, unless something changes, if I were to roll out a 2 deep right now, Luke Deal would be in my 2 deep at tight end. Just because I think he's more of what you can do. You can do everything with him as far as his ability to block and all that sort of thing. But I don't see this current wide receiver room being an issue with drops, mostly because I haven't seen a lot of it, but the guys who we do have returning weren't amongst the ones that had most of those drops that you're talking about, Brad. Another super chat here from the Canoe Man who says, y'all know what to do. Please smash it, everyone. Speaking of the like button, you guys make sure that you do hit that.
Smash that
before we get out of here. Is there anything else that you saw that you wanted to hit on here, B. Will, before we get out of here?
No, I think we pretty much covered everything.
All right, cool. Well, that's it, man. We're going to get out of here. A good conversation going on in the chat. So if you guys have any questions or comments for us, make sure you respond in the comment section of the video. We're about to get out of here. But as always, make sure you guys do the necessary. First and foremost, become a member of the War Rapport. If you're not a member, you will miss some great film breakdowns. I do have one public film breakdown that's out there on Peyton Thorne, so go check that out. But that's just kind of a sample of what you're missing. We got a lot more Peyton Thorne that's going to be behind the paywall, just because we need to give something special to the people who patronize us every month. And it's always good to have those conversations with y'all. Gift a membership if you haven't already to somebody. It's a good way to tell the War Rapport family that you love them. If you didn't get an opportunity to win something today, head to the website. That's warrapport.com. You can shop and get your own stuff and get your own weight up in our merch store. We appreciate that. You can listen to us as the Auburn Express, powered by the War Rapport, wherever you listen to podcasts. A lot of great conversations happening out there. Mike Mack and the Memes, Amen Corner, things of that nature. If you haven't already, like they just said, make sure that you are sharing the video so other people know what's up, getting in on the conversation. Like the video, subscribe to the channel right here on YouTube so you can always know when we are about to go live. Follow us on all our social media. We are the War Rapport on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Though we don't post there a lot, TW Report on TikTok. That's it, man. We are about to get out of here. Hopefully you guys have a great remainder of your Mother's Day. And we'll be back at you guys tomorrow morning with the morning drop, talking a little bit more Auburn sports stuff. Oh, before we get out of here, once again, big shout out to the Auburn baseball team who is doing amazing things right now.
Killing it. Oh my God.
They put Ole Miss in a body bag and then put that body bag in a body bag. Like they run ruled them in the second game of the doubleheader on on Friday, then almost run ruled them again on Saturday. This is Ole Miss, the team that won the College World Series last year, not looking like they're even going to get a trip into the postseason this year.
Yeah.
Auburn put them things on them. Broken Ugly strikes again. Thank you, Ole Miss, for continuing to make me look good when I talk poorly about y'all. I appreciate that a lot.
Yeah.
Auburn softball went down in the semifinals of the SEC championship tournament. But good job to those ladies. They should be getting, I think today is selection Sunday for softball. So we'll know where they're going to be in the postseason today. So good luck to them for the remainder of their season. And that's it, man. But again, we'll be back at you guys tomorrow talking a little bit more Auburn sports stuff. As always, War Eagle, we're out. Peace.
Peace.